Hey guys, it's Maymay, and it's time for another Scripture Art Journal week. Can you believe we're on week 27? I know, it's insane, right? And it's July, so as you know, on my crafting world, I'm starting Christmas in July, so that's pretty cool too, but it gets us halfway to Christmas. So this week's scripture is Psalm 139, 23, and 24. And interestingly enough, that is the scripture from our vacation Bible school. Actually, that's the reason we're doing it, sort of. Our pastor gave us a kind of a call out Sunday for us to memorize this scripture so when we come back to church this coming Sunday, we can discuss it. And I'm anxious to see what his message is about it. And so I've been trying to memorize this, and this is pretty long for an old lady, so I'm struggling, but the kids are doing great in vacation Bible school. They've all learned it. But this scripture says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way of the everlasting." And every night as I hear these kids at church quoting this scripture, I think to myself, wow, this is such a big prayer. Like, if we prayed this and meant it, and let God show us where we're wicked, and let God show us where we make mistakes, and ask Him to point those things out, it would be so eye-opening for us. As a matter of fact, my dad, I have a father who's a pastor, and yes, I'm a preacher's kid. He used to say, and I've done this many, many times, he would say, pray and ask God to show you where you need to change. And if you will ask Him to show you, He will. And he said, but be prepared, because it's not going to be easy when He starts pointing things out to you. The way you think, the way you talk, the way you act, some things you do. Me too. Like, I'm not just saying to you, us as people, when we start asking God to try us and know our thoughts, see if there's anything wicked in us, He will point it out, and then you'll be convicted. And the trick is, what do you do with that? Like, do you just go, oh, well, that's where I mess up. Okay, God, thanks for showing me. No, the idea behind that prayer is so that you can work on those things in your life and correct them, so that God will try your heart and go, really nice. Those are good thoughts. We like those thoughts. Let's cultivate those thoughts. So that's that scripture in a nutshell. And I really enjoy, I like that our pastor kind of gave us a call out to learn this. And I wish you could see our kids at VBS doing it. They are so cute. And I bet if you're in the Southern Baptist Association, you probably had the same scripture in your vacation Bible school. Long intro. I hope it was worth it for you. And I got to show you what we're doing. I'm excited about this one. So I wanted to do, like, at first I was thinking I would do a spotlight, and the page would have a spotlight in the corner with light shining up to the scripture, right? Then I got to thinking, if I'm searching for something, I might be trying to find it through a magnifying glass, right? So look what I did. I created this to be like a magnifying glass, and I did this in the Cricut, and I'm going to share this file with you. However, I do have to tell you, the font that I'm using for this one is a paid font. It comes with my Cricut Access. However, if you don't have access, it won't be free. So if you change the font to a free one, or if you have access or something like that, you'll be fine. You can also just do a print and cut on this. It's just circles, so you could just do this pretty easy. And I just think this is cute. So my background, I want to show you where this comes from. This paper is the Archivist Frank Garcia paper. It is beautiful. It's a Prima pad. I don't even know if it's still being made. It was sent to me a long time ago, and I love this paper. I've been hoarding it and hoarding it. I've used it for a few projects, not a whole lot, but I still keep it in my stash. And I thought this for our background, and then our magnifying glass here and here would be so cute. Now, since I have done this, I've decided I wish I would have cut another layer to go on top of here. So I'm going to do that with a piece of paper, but just use my ruler and cut out a rectangle. So let me measure the size of this dude. I want the handle to have a little bit of dimension, or at least feel like it does. So that's about 1 inch. So if I cut something 3/4 wide by, it looks like 3 1/8 tall, I should get what I'm looking for. So let me find some paper I want to do that with. I'm going to go back to this book and see. I kind of like the gold, the beigey, goldy color of this book. And I don't want it to be a perfect match for the background. Let's see if I can find a little snippet. I like this. That color would be perfect. Let me do this. And there was one other piece I thought might work. The text That might be really cool on there too. Oh, there it is. The dark color and the text mixed together. So this paper pad happens to come with like 4 different sheets of everything. So I'm not stressing that I'm going to come in here and take some of this out. Oh, is this freaking you out? Tell me it's freaking you out that I'm taking this little snip of paper to get this done. I bet some of you are not liking it. But I'm going to use it. I'm going to leave everything else in here and I'll have it for another project. No worries. All right, so I need to cut this guy down to 3/4 of an inch wide. So we'll start here. Probably should cut it here first and get a good straight line since I did that so sloppy. Just cut that little dude. Then turn it around and put it on the 3/4. This is going to be just the color I was wanting. And then I'm going to cut it down to 3 1/8. Oh my goodness, guys. It's almost perfect. Look at this. Look at that tiny piece. Oh my goodness. Whew. We almost didn't have enough, but that's going to work. Now then, let's bring our little magnifying glass back over and see if that will sink in there. See, it needed something. I think the handle needed something. That's perfect. Now I want to do some inking of all of these goodies. So I'm going to dig into my stash and get out an inking tool and some ink. I think I'm going to use the round tool today. And what ink do I want to use? I think I'm going to use my classic vintage photo. Let me dig that one out real fast. Ooh, of my inks. Here we go. Vintage photo. And my notebook. My inking notebook. Here's a good scrap page. So I'm going to ink all these pieces, even the dark blue piece, because it really doesn't matter. It'll still show kind of worn on the edges, and I may distress it. I don't know. We'll see. But I definitely want to ink this up really good. One of the reasons is I did this on white paper, and so it's really, really, pow in your face. So I want to knock it down just a little bit so it looks a little more like the background page. And I did this writing with the fine tip Cricut marker. This was, I think they're just called fine tip. They're not medium. This was the fine. And this is a red color that I did this with. And I bought those markers on that big clearance they did one time where you could buy so many of them. I think I got like every pack for like $20 or something like that. So keep a watch on Cricut.com for those cool markers. Look how different that looks already. Look, it's not nearly as white feeling as it was. So there's that done. Let's ink this little guy. I'm just do him this way, just for some movement. Do that end. I hope you like the magnifying glass. Like I said, I'm going to share that file with you. It was super easy to make. As a matter of fact, I just used free shapes to do it. Let me show you. This is a circle. This is a small rectangle. And this is a bigger rectangle. And all I did was weld them together in Design Space. And it made a magnifying glass. Then I cut the white circle out to be slightly smaller so that it would kind of pop in there. While we're doing the inking right here, I want to mention this. I had a lot of people asking me, why is it when I put text somewhere, when I head to the mat, the text is no longer where I put it? The reason is you need to attach the text to whatever spot on your project you want it to live. The reason for that is when you're in the Cricut, if you don't tell it to hold this text in place, it doesn't know to. So it thinks that text is just free floating text. So when I had this little guy in the Cricut on, this circle on Design Space, I selected the text and the circle and I attached them together so that the text would stay where it's supposed to be. Just a little quick something there because I've had a lot of people asking me that question and I just wanted to tell you. That way, if you want to change that text or font, you'll know that you got to detach it to do it. All right, so here's our page. And I'm really liking how this looks. And I made this guy big enough for my journal, but you can totally adjust the size of this down to fit whatever it is that you're using. Now, I'm just going to take some art glitter glue and put it here on the back of this magnifying glass. Also, I was saying earlier, you could resize this to fit your journal page if you needed to make it smaller, but you could also make it bigger. So I got my glue on the back of it, and I'm going to make it fit the whole page because that's kind of how I designed it. I love it. I cut that on some navy paper. Isn't that navy pretty? I wanted to steer clear of some black just because I use that all the time, and I thought the navy might be pretty. Little glue on the back of this piece, not my fingers, which I did just get it on my finger, made a mess. I'm known for making a mess. wipe that down. I really like that piece. So if you're doing this in your Cricut, you could already, you could make one of these pieces out of just a free rectangle to stick inside that handle. Just resize it to get it and let your Cricut cut it. But that was not hard what we did. That was super easy. And here goes our scripture. I love how this is looking. I had some people ask me, oh, this was such a good question. Last week's scripture, and I'm going to show you what it looked like in case you didn't see it. Last week's scripture, I put flowers on a brick wall for the scripture, and I don't think I explained very well why I chose to do that. You can see here, the reason I'm using a magnifying glass is because I'm asking God to search me. So we do that. It's kind of like a detective, right? So that's why I'm using this one. But I wanted to tell you a little bit why I chose the brick wall and the flowers. Also, I'm going to glue this into my book. And what I'm going to do is remove my fine metal tip. People ask me about that too, about when and why I do that. I'm removing it for this because I don't want the glue to dry before I can get enough on to hold it in my book. So I just do that for a few minutes. Glue this down, and then I'll put that tip right back on and it will be perfectly fine. Now, if you forget, it can dry and you can have some clogs. So you don't want to forget. You just want to get that glued down and then go right back, and this little tip just screws right back on, just like that. Okay? And don't forget to put your pin in because that will also cause problems. Now, oh, and if you're interested, this glue is in my store. Another question I get a lot. So there's this week's. I love how that looks. I think that is really cool. Let me go back to last week's. I used these flowers on this brick wall, and to me, this was really interesting because there's a singer that I really love. Her name is Natalie Grant, and she sings a song that is called "I Will Not Be Moved," I think. I think that's the name of it. But it talks about not being shaken when things come our way. And she's such a feminine lady, and I consider myself to be fairly feminine. And I thought this feminine flowers against the brick wall, that really felt like the scripture to me. So that's where that one came from. And then obviously today is kind of search me, O Lord. And I've had people ask me, how do you come up with different themes? And I noticed that you're not always very specific to the scripture. Like I'm not saying literal, and it's not a literal interpretation of the scripture. I think we should just play with it and think about what images we see when we hear the scripture, when we read the scripture, and then put that into our journal, because our journal is for us and it speaks to us. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I hope that you will join us in the future. Matter of fact, if this is your first time joining us for Scripture Art Journal, head over to our Facebook group, which is called Hide His Word in My Heart. That link is right below here in the description. Join the group, get some inspiration, see what other folks are doing, share with us some prayer requests. We love to pray for you guys, and make some new friends. It is an awesome place, very positive and very uplifting. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week for week 28. Oh my goodness. You guys have a great one. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.